Hi, my name is Tori, and I am the owner of Calling All Dogs. I would like to welcome you to our Reactive Dog program. This is an introduction on how to turn negative emotions into positive emotions. Throughout the program, we will be going into a lot of terms and definitions, and I'm going to be pointing out a lot of body language in your dog, and all these are going to be very helpful to the success that you and your dog have with your individualized training program. So to make it a bit easier, I wanted to take you through some information that you can have access to before we meet, and in general, just to refer back to. So the overview of what we will be doing today is we're going to go into the definitions. We're going to go into the learning process for dogs, and that's going to include some management as well. We're going to talk about body language, and we're going to talk about some recommended equipment. The first definition is a trigger. That is anything that causes your dog to react or feel stressed. That can be a person, another dog, a sound, a bicycle. It can be multiple things or just one. But these are the things that we're going to be working on them with to feel better about. Trigger stacking is continual exposure to triggers. Now, this can be at the same time. For example, if your dog is nervous of people and you go to a park and there's a lot of kids running around and their parents, each person is a separate trigger. And when there are multiple together, you can't expect your dog to react as well as he could if there was only one there. And that is because each trigger increases the stress level. There is also trigger stacking over time. So that is where you just have lots of stress built up before other stress levels have had time to decrease. And I'm going to give you an example for a person. So at night, you are sleeping and you're having nightmares. So you didn't sleep very well. When you wake up, you realize that you have slept past your alarm and now you're running late to work. You're off to a bad start with this morning with already 2 stressful events happening. On your way to work, you end up getting a flat tire, and that has you extra delayed. So you now have extra financial problems to pay for, and you're late for work. When you get to work, your boss says something to you about being late, and in response, you just blow up and just yell at your boss. You probably wouldn't have done that if at least some of those triggers had not happened throughout the day, but they just kept building and building. The stress kept rising and rising, and you have that outward reaction. The same exact thing happens to our dogs. So they might hear a noise in the morning that gets them nervous or upset. They might see something out the window that they're not happy with, and then you do a training setup later that day, and it's not going to go as well because the stress has not had time to go down. Depending on the dog, it can take days for that stress level to go back to baseline. Reinforce is to strengthen. So when we were talking about reinforcement, is anything that strengthens the behavior so it will continue. Threshold is the point where a dog shows fear, anxiety, or increased awareness of a trigger. That threshold is at the point where we need to make a decision of how to change up our training scenario so they can be more comfortable. Under threshold is where we want them to be. So they can see the trigger and don't care. It's there, whatever. Over threshold is a full-out reaction. Really recognizing body language and stress signs will help you determine your dog's threshold. And I'm going to be helping you with that as well. The learning process. Behavior that is reinforced is more likely to reoccur. In other words, dogs do what works for them. If your dog barks at triggers that are passing by, he is learning that the barking made the trigger go away. The behavior of barking has been reinforced. Your dog wanted that trigger to go away, wanted increased distance from it. He didn't know that they're going to pass by anyways, but he thinks his actions, his behaviors made that happen. So that behavior of the barking will continue. Management for this is really important. In order for training to be successful, we need to manage the environment so they do not practice the unwanted behaviors while we work on helping them understand that these triggers are good things rather than bad things. So for this scenario, you could cover or block the window so they can't see out of it or get to the window to see out of it. You can have your dog inside during active parts of the day when triggers appear the most. And that could be when kids are getting home from school, multiple kids getting off the bus. If they see that, it's going to be hard for them. It can be when you know people are taking their dogs for walks. Anything that's going to get your dog upset, really try to look at the environment and manage it so they're not exposed when not in training mode. Another example is if your dog lunges at strangers, he will be separated from the person. The lunging has been reinforced because it created the distance that he desired. Dogs will have different kind of responses based on the dog, but likely when they're lunging forward, it is the same reason why another dog is trying to run away and hide. They want distance from the trigger. You have to separate your dog if he's lunging at strangers. However, your dog just learned the lunging gets him the distance. Let's keep doing it. To manage this situation, you can have your dog on leash and away from the person at a distance where he's comfortable while doing some training, or you can simply place your dog in another room behind a closed door, making sure that everybody is safe and reducing the stress in general. This isn't long-term goal, but this is just to help in that training process. Dogs learn by association. So when training, it's important that the reward closely follows the desired behavior. For example, rewarding a fearful or reactive dog as soon as he sees the trigger. The trigger will start to predict a reward. So your dog will say, hey, every time a person comes out, I get cheese. This is great. I want that person to keep coming out. I want to see this person again, and for a better reason. Food releases happy chemicals in the brain. So if you're having a bad day and you start to snack on some of your favorite foods, for me, I'd be snacking on some chocolate, you're going to start feeling a little bit better because those happy chemicals are being released. Now we can use that food to help those happy emotions being associated with a trigger. It is imperative that the trigger appears and then the reward is given. This is to ensure that the presence of a reward does not cause your dog to become anxious or hypervigilant. So if you get the food ready because you know a person or a dog is about to pop out, your dog's going to realize that. It's going to be a sign to them, and they're going to start to be looking all around saying, all right, I need to be on alert. However, if you let your dog acknowledge that there is a trigger at a distance at which he can handle and does not show signs of stress, and then the food appears, that is how we get them to get that really positive response. It is very important to find an alternate behavior. When you want your dog to stop doing something, give him something else to do instead. That is something that is incompatible with behavior you don't want. And this is something that we need to teach your dog. Examples of this are going to a designated area when he hears a door knock instead of charging the door. It can be checking in with you instead of barking and lunging at the trigger. And there are very many different things that we can do. It's going to be based on your preference and what works for you and your family. Make sure to raise the criteria gradually so you can build upon a strong foundation. So don't expect too much too soon from your dog. If he's been practicing this for a while, it's going to take time to retrain him and help him feel better. So you want to make sure that your dog is successful with the activity before making it more difficult. This is so you can just have that firm foundation and you're setting your dog up to be successful. Every interaction that you have with your dog is a learning experience. So if you, let's take an obedience example. If you're working on your dog politely waiting to go out the door, so they're not charging it and rushing out and pulling you, and you're working hard on that, and one day you're like, I don't feel like it, I don't feel like training right now, and you just let your dog bolt out the door, you're undoing your training. You're letting him know that, yeah, this behavior is acceptable sometimes. So you really need to make sure that we are taking a look at what we're doing with our dogs and how we're just daily interacting with them. Body language is something that is a must to understand, and I will be pointing this out continuously during the training lessons. This is so you can determine when your dog is stressed before a reaction occurs. So our dogs are constantly communicating with us through the body language. They tell us when they're happy, stressed, scared, or aroused, and more. These signs appear before an outward reaction. So the reaction does not come out of nowhere. A lot of people will say, my dog, it came out of nowhere, my dog bit. Well, my dog's always been so happy with people and babies, and all of a sudden, just out of nowhere, he bit. Really, that doesn't happen. They're showing signs, but we just don't know how to see them if we're not taught to. So it's like speaking another language, and we need to learn it. It is really crucial to recognize the stress signs so that we can change a training situation to help your dog feel more comfortable. When your dog feels comfortable while training, that will help speed up that learning process, and it sets them up for the best success. Some recommended equipment are, you can do a flat collar or a martingale. I really prefer a front clip harness just to protect your dog's neck. One I like is a 2 Hounds Designed Freedom harness, and that is something that you can find on Amazon. A non-retractable leash, and a variety of extremely special treats that are only used during behavior modification training. And that can be something like steak and cheese, or their favorite, dog training treat like Charlie Bears or Zooks. Just make sure that you're not using this during any other time. And really, it's important to understand that dogs perform behaviors based on what's in it for them. So with our training at Calling All Dogs, everything is based on positive reinforcement. And really think about it. Why train them to avoid the pain of a prong collar when they can have fun learning by treats, toys, and praise? So we do not allow prong collars or shock collars or choke chains. So please make sure that you have one of these recommended equipments available, and let me know if you're having trouble finding something or sizing it. I will be happy to help you out with that. I hope you have learned some information that's going to help you out during these lessons. I really know they will. It is very important that we just follow the training plan and make sure that your dog is not stressed, because you're going to be stressed too. And if you're stressed, they're going to pick up on it big time. I look forward to meeting you, and please do not hesitate to contact me with questions.